I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
What is that?
Have y'all heard this?
We got some new music.
You better make sure you have permission.
Well, here's the
Look
deal.
at there.
I think we can go to him and ask him to pay us royalties for using Gamekeeper in
is that
his
on
song.
a licensing report?
Good luck with that.
Yeah, so that's Walt Gabbard has a song called Gamekeeper. It's a pretty cool song.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I like it.
Yeah.
Old Walt.
Yeah, I like old Walt. So, in fact, he was telling me yesterday his youngins, so they've all tagged out up there in
Just burn them up in Kentucky.
Boone
huh?
and Wayland, and man, he got some country sounding names.
I'm gonna tell you what now.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, he's from the country.
He's
That's
country.
right. Yeah. And when we call somebody country, that's pretty country.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, welcome everybody, West Point, Mississippi, home of
thank
Mossy
you, Bobby.
Oak. Glad to have everybody here today. We have Mark Drury.
The
Let's
one
hit
and
the
only.
horns.
No doubt.
Who's finally on the board?
Oh, wow.
Hello, fam. How you doing?
I feel so bad for Mark and his lack of deer trophies.
Yeah.
You know,
Just so sad.
so if you go to DeerCast, you can see this latest thing, and it is a monster.
There's a giant. There's
Mark,
no
that's
doubt
a
about
giant
it.
deer. What did he score?
That deer scored 167 and 4/8. He was 23 and a half inches wide, which makes him
Yeah.
look really, really big.
Yeah.
And he was a deer that I had pictures of last year at age 4.5, and then he wasn't there at all on that farm. That's a 417 acre farm. He showed up October the 26th, and then started daylighting on a field down in a bottom. I killed him on deer radishes actually,
Hey.
and he daylighted there 2 nights in a row on the second and third, or third and fourth, and I killed him on the fifth. Yeah, what's today? I killed him on the fifth, the evening of the fifth.
Boy, he's a big
Nice.
deer.
Giant deer.
What did he weigh?
You know, we didn't weigh him. He was a 5-year-old. I mean, he's typical for the deer up here in that size. You know, he was probably live weight 260-ish, probably live weight, I would guess.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's a big deer.
200 kilograms.
It's just a different animal up
It
there.
is.
Yeah, around here, a
tank.
typical 5-year-old is probably 220.
Not
Oh
even
man,
that.
not even that. I mean,
Not
the
even
deer
that.
Bobby killed is one of the heaviest deer I've heard from.
Depends
around
on
here.
if they've had access to quality.
BCP.
Or they're, in
Yeah.
these heavily timbered areas, they might be less than that.
Yeah.
That's true, especially with
Like 180, 190.
Wow, 260.
that's a big old
That
deer.
is a big old deer. So what we've invited Mark here today to talk to us is about aging buck on the hoof. You're sitting in a tree stand, you see a deer show up. It's a process to go through to age one, and it's kind of hard when you're trying to kill these 5.5-year-old animals and older, or you would ideally like to. So once they get above a certain age, it's kind of hard, and Mark's really good at doing that. So that's what we wanted to talk about. We're gonna have a bunch of questions, Mark. And
I mean, like, what has he done lately to tell us he can pattern a 5.5-year-old deer? I just don't get it.
I could kill one on the 5th. 2 days
So,
ago.
but Mark, before you jump in here and defend yourself, before we go down this rabbit hole, I wanted to ask you. Nobody's expecting this question,
Oh, Lord.
But-
Here we
Oh,
go.
get ready.
for my years of knowing you and hunting around you. You've got music that if a certain song comes on when you're going hunting, it's like gold. You know something good's going to happen.
It's lots deeper than that, Bobby.
Well, I was wondering if you would explain that to us.
It's just a feeling, and like I heard that song and went and had good luck. And this goes back, my goodness, 20 plus years ago.
A
The
long
original
time.
the original Lucky song was Tracy Bird 4-1 in Atlanta, and it was Jared and I had a great run during the late season, and killed a deer, get back in the truck, first song, killed another deer a different night, first song, and 3 in a row that Jared and I killed. And it was the first song 3 times in a row, regardless of the time we were getting back to the truck on the local radio station. And we just started paying attention to it after that. And we've had many, many very lucky songs. And I literally just identified this year's the other night. I said, I think this is it. It was a song that Taylor and I heard it, And this is the same artist that does the Mossy Oak song, Red Farron. And I've been hearing it on social media, and I was like, this guy's pretty cool. He did a song called Mossy Oak, and I really like his song, Jack and Diet Coke. Jack and Diet Coke. And I told Taylor about it. I said, listen to this artist. And she was like, oh, he does the Mossy Oak song. So it's pretty cool. And now they've got it on the highway. They're starting to play it. And before, we just heard it on his social pages. And then, she found it on wherever she gets her music. But now I'm hearing it on the radio. So I was like, the other night I killed that deer, got in the truck, first song.
There it was.
I was like, there it was.
So let's dig a little deeper here. So this stuff is more predictive than your zodiac sign, I'm telling you, for him. On the other hand, there are specific songs that are borderline evil, bad luck. We're going to he was down here, we're turkey hunting before daylight, driving, and I hadn't had a scolding from Mark, rarely, but this was the worst one. Don't turn on the radio and randomly scroll the channel, because that song might come on. Because, I'm not going to call the artist's name. He was a super popular person we all listened to. And he basically did a panic swan dive to hit the off button on my radio because it was coming on. He said, don't you know? And I said, no, I don't know. So anyway, I got a lesson in that. And sure enough, we had that morning, three different turkeys in easy gun range. And the camera's like, can you not see that? I can't see him. And all three of them just walk off, and he's like, I told you.
So that's like taking a banana to the fishing boat. You just don't do that.
So it's a whole new level of whatever you want to call it, superstition. I thought Cuz was bad. I think he tops him.
Yeah, Cuz is just a little stitious.
No,
Mark is superstitious.
I've seen Cuz stop, hit the brakes, screech, almost have a wreck because a black cat had run across the road, and go back and be late to go hunting to another route because he can't cross that. But everybody's got their thing.
Bobby, do you have a particular song that
The Carpenters are mine.
I know exactly? I was fixing to name yours for you.
If the Carpenters and Gary LeVox is lucky for me too.
Is he?
Yeah. But the Carpenters are great.
What about you, Dudley? What's your good luck song? Is it
How often do the Carpenters come on the radio, Bobby?
It happens on the way to the dummy line.
So we've got an hour drive, and if they come on, it's just like, I know something good's going to happen.
There's one that says something about a bird.
Yeah, there's why do birds magically appear whenever you are near. If she sings that song, I might as well just load my gun and just start looking
get
around.
ready.
Something's going to happen.
So what station are you listening to in the hopes to hear the Carpenters? 70s?
Yeah, 70s on 7.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll pay attention to that.
You're pre-selecting a song that you like and think that's going to bring it up. Mark actually is scientifically analyzing data to figure out the one. It's very scientific. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I've got one.
I just wait till it hits me. And this year, I'm fairly certain it's Red Farron, Jack and Diet Coke. I'm calling it.
Yeah. Mine.
Do you guys know him? He did that Mossy Oak song. I never
Landy,
knew him.
Heard of.
What's your name down there? Toxie. I bet he knows him.
Haas.
No, I don't know him.
Haas.
Mr. Haas.
I bet Daniel and Neil know him.
Yeah. I guarantee you they do. So anyway, that's one of the more valuable things for people to learn about patterning big mature whitetails.
Pick you a lucky song.
Pick a song and pay attention to what has brought you luck.
True or false? That song was by Burt Bacharach, the one that was giving y'all so much grief. True or false?
What song?
The one that made y'all have the rough turkey hunt.
The one that
no, false.
False.
Okay. Lanny, what is your song?
What, Dudley? My song? You want me to go ahead and throw it out there?
Throw it out there.
Golden Earring.
Never
When
heard
the
that
bullet
song.
hits the bone, baby.
Who sings that?
Golden Earring.
Golden Earring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not the name of the song. It's just one of the lines in there. Look, Richie knows.
Yeah,
What
I
is
know
it?
you're talking about back in the day when I used to work at the Fox. Man,
Yeah,
at
that's it.
the local radio, rock and roll station. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right, Dudley. We're
When the
moving
bullet hits
on.
the
You
bone.
better throw something out fast.
Probably something like Love Tractor. Y'all don't know any
Some
of that.
Is that by
Widespread.
Trey or is that widespread?
All right, so Mark, we've bored Mark enough. So let's talk about aging these deer on a hoof. I mean, you're one of the best at it, if not the best at it. But I want to learn that year between 3.5 and 4.5. It's where it gets really tough for me. But let me read something really quick. One of the best ways, one of the best examples of judging deer is this poster that Ryan Kirby has done. And Mark, I was talking to Ryan. He was like, he said, "Hey, Mark is the best." He commented that some of your insight helped them develop this poster. But the growth of a whitetail buck happens in a predictable, rhythmic seasons. In the spring and summer, his velvet antlers grow, gaining length and mass. And in the fall, he sheds his velvet, and testosterone surges, swelling his neck and preparing him for the rigors of the rut.
That sounds like one of the romance.
Are you reading
probably
this?
read it. All right,
Surging testosterone. Late winter, he sheds his antlers and returns to feeding, replenishing his body. Each year, the buck matures in distinct ways. Each season, he climbs higher in the social hierarchy of the herd. So what we want to talk about is how, when you're up there in that stand, and what features about him you're looking at to help you determine his age?
Man, there's so many, and without question, the best way to know a deer's age is a lot of monitoring in the field from a trail picture standpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
Amen.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, it's very difficult to see a deer for the first time and go, "Oh, that's a 5.5-year-old deer." You know, if you have no history with him, so history, without question, helps a lot of people with this, which is another reason that I keep all my trail photos. I don't discard them. And I think this day and age, with so many sale reports, I've seen a lot of people. We used to all keep most of them, but a lot of people don't keep their photos anymore. And I do, man. I want that information long term. So I'll look at them once as the season's occurring, and then we collect those SD cards at the end of the season, and I categorize them all and file them all, because I want to know the age of those deer. And I specifically want to look back, because in the now, you're probably focused on 1 or 2 shooters, and you're not paying attention to those deer that are perhaps a nice 1.5 years or a 2.5. Whereas in 3 or 4 years, you might want to look back and go, who is this giant, or who is this deer with the kicker, and go backwards in time and go, oh, here he is. He's actually 4.5. So that's the best way to do it. It's more difficult to me to age in the summer and in the winter than it is during the rut. They all get a very distinct look during the rut, that they swell up a little bit, and a lot of those characteristics get magnified during the rut. And I think that's probably the best time to try and identify them, because if you try to age deer in July or in like January up here, it would be later for you guys down there. It's very difficult, because many of them from 3.5 up through 8.5 all look similar ages, because their necks swell back down, and they have a very slender look to them. So when they swell back up and those heads swell a little bit, I swear even their racks grow during the rut. Everything swells on them. They're a little bit easier to understand. And the thing that I look for immediately, if I'm looking for maturity, in other words, 5.5 or older, I'll look at his cap, you know, and in and around his eyes, they start to, you know, they have a little cap that goes over their eyes, and specifically their neck. When their neck gets flop in it, you could just about bet you're looking at a 5 or 6-year-old deer. When they're walking, if you see that slightest little sway back and forth in that neck right in through there, and definition right there, that is almost always a mature deer. And you could look at back, you could look at belly, but I'm more than anything, I'm looking at head and neck when I'm trying to determine a deer's age. And you know, if you're lucky enough to see a deer out on a green field with other deer to where you can compare body sizes, that's a very big advantage if you can see him out there with other deer and help you understand his age. Because there's some foolers out there. I've seen some really mature looking, blocky headed 3 and 4 year olds. And then I've seen some very sleek 5 and 6 year olds. So they're not all created equal. Yep. So you can't put them all into one lane or one bucket and go, oh, that's what all 5.5s look like. Because that's not necessarily the case. There are deer that are short, squatty, and heavier set. There are deer with a more of a thoroughbred, long, lanky look. And the best way is with a picture history. But if you just have to look at a deer in the field, I'm looking at head and neck first and trying to determine just how large that head is and how floppy that throat is.
Your daughter's been begging you to hunt since her little brother shot the big 8 last year. You've ran a fire, dissed the fields, got stuck, got unstuck. Planted food plots, fertilized, and prayed for rain. You moved trees, limbed roads, even bought one of those fancy cell cameras.
So what's your excuse?
LS Tractor.
Moultrie has pioneered the game management category. Today, Moultrie is one of the best-selling brands of feeders and seeders in the world, and they continue to innovate with new technology that gamekeepers will rely on. Moultrie products are always field-tested and designed for hunters by hunters, combining forward-thinking innovation with time-tested practicality. Moultrie, first in feeders since 1979. All right, so guys, Moultrie is offering our listeners a 15% site-wide discount at MoultrieFeeders.com. Use code Mossy Oak with a capital M, Mossy Oak, at MoultrieFeeders.com and get that 15% discount. When you say that one of the mistakes that people make, or one of the hardest things to do, you don't need to look at antlers and judge his age by antlers, because it's not the way to do it, right?
Agreed. I seldom look at antlers, but there are things about antlers that can help you. Like if you're on the edge, like how old is he? Well, if he's got big mass and he starts throwing kickers around the base, that's something that traditionally comes with age that I've noticed. So you can look at it as more of a totality of evidence of age, but it certainly wouldn't be the first thing I'd look at. It'd probably be the last thing I would look at.
Yeah.
So I know, this day and age, if you're going for a bigger antler score, you generally want that deer to be older than 4. While a lot of us, consider a 4-year-old a mature buck, you just went over the differences between, like a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old deer. But 3-year-olds can often fool us as well, because they often come out into the field and they're more aggressive. They're running around. They can trick you, as evidenced by this 3-year-old 12 point here on the wall that I shot a few years ago. But can you help our listeners understand the differences between a 3-year-old and a more mature deer?
You bet. And oftentimes the thing I notice about 3-year-olds is they're the ones that you see the most often. They daylight the most often,
Yes.
and the most likely deer to really put on the miles. And I personally believe the species is built for about 3.5. If you look at deer hunting through time and your properties and your experiences, it's so difficult to get one that makes it to 4 and then 5 and then 6. I once read a story about 100 button bucks that Mississippi State had collared in the wild, and only one of those buttons made it to age 6.5. So, that's a 1% chance of a deer making it to 6.5. And many of them just do not make it past 3.5. And I just don't think they're built for much older than that. Certainly they can get there, but the odds are really stacked against them once they hit 4, 5, 6. And, it's a freak of nature to see one that's 7 or 8. But, if you really want to see one that's topped out and looks his best, a healthy deer that had led a fairly decent lifestyle, free of disease or injuries or EHD, a 7 or 8-year-old buck is just a monster up here. It's a rarity, but those are the ones that are fully matured, giant head, giant neck. And back to your original question, those 3.5s just have that sleek race farce look. That's the best way I can describe them. They don't look young anymore, like those 1.5 and 2.5. They're fairly easy to see and identify. But at age 3.5, it's the first year he's gonna have that, that look about him that he starts to look mature, and he's starting to get a little squinty eyed. His rack may be outside of his ears for the first time in his life, and you see him coming, and you're like, that's a good looking deer. And to me, I also see coloration differences from 2.5 to 3.5. They start to get that auburn cap. To where they look a little older, and then all of a sudden they start to gray a little bit by the time they're 6 and 7. And sometimes that's genetic coloration of face and hide in general. But as a rule of thumb, they look a little older in the face by the time they're 3.5. But there's a difference between a 3 and a 4-year-old. And really the best thing to do is try to identify that as you're looking through trail photos. Like, don't just look at it and go buck versus doe. Try to identify it as what age class he might be, because you're at least starting the process of better understanding him when you do see him in the field.
He makes a great point, because if you really want to know, if you just want to have a general guess of it, there's a lot of things to look at. And the one thing I would mention that has always helped me, that a very astute biologist we all used to work with told me, and I've held it to be true, is that balance beam, looking at them from the side. So that shoulder is smaller and they actually almost look like a taller back end. I mean, it's like big ham, small shoulders. That's a young deer. And, you know, what he was saying, on 4 to 5, it's kind of like that evens out. And then you get where they got this bigger shoulder and even a smaller back end. I've seen a lot of deer on the skinning rack have a skinny back end, but a big deer. And it felt like they're really old. So, in short, the balance beam is a pretty good way to look. But what Mark says is the best wisdom of all. If you really, really want to know, age them when they're 1.5, 2.5. That's when you can really be sure. Because as they get, if you just come out of nowhere, even if you're the best there is, if you come out of nowhere looking at one, you know, solo that's 5, 6, 7, whatever, even the best can't get that right all the time.
Yeah.
There's no way. So what he does, that's why he does so good at everything. I'm not going to leave it to chance. I'm going to go back and check, because then I can keep up with that deer. And sometimes that makes it more fun too, to keep up with them over time and know the history of that deer, you've grown it and so forth.
So this thing that I'm studying, Mark, it says that a 3.5-year-old, the way he's described, is athletic, lean, and toned. I mean, that's kind of like me.
Oh, I need
I don't know about all that.
And bald-headed, didn't say that.
They may need to up your T levels a little bit.
But then it's saying a 4.5 is broad, thick, and strong, and a 5.5-year-old is mature, bulky, and dominant. And then a 6.5, and I really this one really kind of hits home, is heavy, sagging, and short.
There you are. Yeah, that's probably bald-headed.
Yeah. I will just tell you this. Also, one thing I forgot to mention: aging differs based on area. In other words,
100%.
Absolutely, yes.
You go to Texas and try to age those deer, it's nearly impossible. Man, they all look the same from the time they're 4.5 to 9.5. There's just subtle differences. Versus take a Canadian deer, there's much more distinct differences. But the one consistent thing I've seen, no matter where I've hunted, that floppy throat right here will never lie to you. When you see a deer that's flopping right in here, you can just about bet he's 5 or older. And they just don't get that until they get some age on them. That is the one thing I've noticed that makes a difference.
All right, Mark. So for our folks that are listening and not on YouTube, when you're pointing at your neck, are you pointing at like the Adam's apple area of the deer, or that brisket area down lower?
From their jaw all the way down to the top of their chest, right in there. Specifically, I'm going to say the 12 inches just below their jaw, that area right there has clear definition to their esophagus, because their neck muscles are so big. This is left alone and it will flop just a little bit. Start watching that, and that's the mark of a mature deer every time.
Wow, I feel mature all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That is, and I haven't heard that used a lot. That's if you'll take the time. Of course, a lot around here, someone sees a good set of horns, I don't think they're looking at anything else, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's brownish down.
I always just, when I see something big coming through the woods, and I start getting excited after making several mistakes in the past, I always force myself to just assume it's a 3-year-old and go from there, and that seems to help me not,
So Mark, in
That's
this description of a 6.5-year-old, they're referring to him as being short. The deer's not getting any shorter. His body, he's just like a 55-gallon drum, and it's making his legs look shorter.
Look shorter. That's right.
Yeah, he's fat. Yeah. And there's a phenomenon that goes on at age 6 for us around here, because you get so used to seeing, you almost get numb to seeing a big one, because all you see are 2s, 3s, and 4s consistently, because they're the most frequent. And then when you see a 6, you have a tendency to not recognize him, just because his rack almost looks small in comparison to his body.
Right.
But in reality, you see him out in the field and he's this giant, but there's a perspective between body and rack that actually makes him look small. It's interesting as you look at trail photos. We have a deer up here this year that's just a big old fat thing, and his rack looks decent. Wade and I the other day were driving back from a hunt in the morning, and we saw that deer out there tending a doe. And we were just flabbergasted at how large this deer was, because we looked at 100 or 200 pictures of this deer, and we were like, oh, he's a nice deer. We knew he was mature, but when we saw him in person, he is an absolute giant. So big, fat, mature deer can actually shrink their rack just because of the perspective between body and antler.
Likewise, a small deer might look bigger than he is too.
Correct.
Exactly.
Great point. Yes.
The few times
Yeah.
I hunted in the Midwest and up north Michigan and Illinois, places you've only hunted in the South predominantly. I said, well, don't be careful because these deer, the body size is so much bigger, you'll underestimate the horns. And they were right.
Yeah.
Ground shrinkage versus ground expansion has to do with their body size.
So you keep referring to your cameras. How many cameras are you running, Mark?
Predominantly here in the Midwest, we've got a lot of cells, but I've got 100 non-cells running and about 150 cells. So probably 250 cameras that are running and 150 cells total. We look at anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 photos a day right now, just from our cell reports.
I don't know how you do that.
That's some
He's
observation
got
right
help,
there.
Bobby.
Yeah,
He's got a little help too.
On your non-cell cameras, are you going in at specific times in the middle of the day to pull those cards, or is there any strategy to that, or just when you got 100, you just got to get them when you can?
They're generally in a place that I'm kind of pre-scouting for the following year. So maybe every month and a half to 3 months. Some of them I just leave run the whole season.
Yeah,
and it's really the cells that are giving us the information that we want. But
Yeah.
to that point, Toxie, I don't have a ton of help when it comes to photos because I don't like anybody looking at them but me. I mean,
Man after my own
He
heart.
resembles that remark.
I've gotten in a big spat with the boys because I couldn't never remember. I got a new company's cell cameras and I couldn't remember my password. What do you mean you don't remember your password? Well, I used one, but then go in and set it. I mean, that was like, and then I fell asleep early and didn't answer their text and all. But I'm just like you. It's like the old-fashioned statement about secrets, that I can keep a secret like every time. But dang, those people I tell it to cannot keep their mouth shut.
Mark, you remember the good old days when you'd take your photos to the drugstore or Kmart or what, and you'd give somebody else's name.
Oh, I'd be sweating, waiting for them to hand them back to me across the counter,
and back then, Walmart used to have this policy, you don't have to pay for the ones that you developed. And I always felt so guilty about that. I would just pay for them all because I was like, this is not fair. And I knew guys that would only buy one or two out of the roll. They eliminate the does, buy the $2 and then move on. And they do that with several sets of film, but I always bought them all. I thought that was terrible.
Hey, you're a good guy, Mark.
I bet you're a good tipper too.
I am.
He is.
Landy, I'm gonna look at you. You always say I never get to ask any questions.
I mean, you're such a.
Well, y'all stop it.
Well, I mean, he's right. He always talks over me. He already asked the question that I was going to ask, but that's fine.
The Bobby Landy effect. Here it goes again.
I was just curious. I learn something more every year, and just like, what's the latest amazing thing that you've learned about the whitetail? Most of them lately.
It's something that I geek out on a lot here lately because we deal with it so often, is just the overall relationship between health and ultimate antler development. Like it is such a rare occurrence that a deer makes it to a certain age class, call it 6 or older, and then also didn't have something from a health, something nagging him from a health component that allowed him to become a giant, and I think that through time, as you look across the country and there's these random mega giants that pop up, well, you've got to have genetics, you've got to have age, but they also have had to have had a clean bill of health to get to that stage.
Yeah.
Because I've had some phenomenal 2 and 3 and 4 year old deer that don't end up looking so phenomenal. And it's because the HD hit, or they got in a fight, or they scratched their leg and ended up getting hoof rot. There's a lot of different things that go wrong for whitetail deer that affect their ultimate outcome. And it kills a lot of them. I say it many times. I've never seen something so hard to kill die so easily, and they can sure shrink up. And also, what was the acorn crop like when they were fawns? What was the acorn crop like throughout their life?
Mm-hmm.
How many droughts did they go through, or did they have a good, nutrient transfer each and every year of their life? And I see it specifically this year because we've been in a drought for so long here in the Midwest that they just keep getting smaller and smaller with age. And I look back on years where we had just tremendous antler quality, and I'm starting to research weather patterns prior to those years to see what leads to that. Because I think it would be awesome if it was predictable based on weather conditions and a bunch of other conditions that they go through. So that's something that I'm in the process of trying to learn better. I mean, obviously we all want a healthy herd, but there's random things that happen to them that, detract from what they ultimately look like when they're fully mature.
This is Lanny at the Gamekeepers of Mossy Oak. I've been shooting Nosler bullets as long as I've been wearing Mossy Oak. Nosler ballistic tip ammunition is made for knocking deer down right where they stand. Nosler's famous ballistic tip bullet is the key. It has controlled expansion and bone-crushing punch to turn a whitetail's lights out. Bring home more deer this year with ballistic tip ammunition from Nosler. Buy now at nosler.com. Interesting.
That was a good question.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't steal it.
No, I like
How hard was that for you to compliment him? That looked like painful.
it was.
Yeah,
It was very painful.
Well, he's the biggest student of whitetails I know.
We've done 189 podcasts. That's the first time I've
So-
complimented him.
So you said that. Here's the deal. So I get to go back and say I've known him longer than anybody, which I can't even remember that long ago. But the key is to learn from this is a bigger thing. He is one for everybody out there that looks up to him, and they should. His work ethic. It's unbelievable. But the second thing is he is so freaking anally organized about everything in his life. And so it bleeds up, obviously great success in business and everything, but it bleeds over to managing his place and has from the day he first became obsessed with it. And that's something we could all learn because even in business or career, home life, and in hunting and managing a property, a little organization will go a long way. And people overlook that, I believe. They just kind of, and I know I'm too random and I don't do it well enough. I'm kind of one of those, I have high organizational needs, very poor organizational skills. So I'm a anomaly, but he is so organized. I just want to point that out to people out there to learn from.
Yeah, organized and anal. But both of those things.
No, anally organized.
Anal
Bobby, don't put words in my mouth.
Oh, me.
Big words from Toxie to you, Mark.
Well, Toxie's right. We've known each other since February of 1989 is when we first met down in Natchez, and we've been very close ever since. But I do dig deep.
Yes.
And, I've been lucky enough to have some phenomenal people in my life that I've learned from. Toxie being at the top of that list. My brother Terry, the people we've met through business, Will Primos and Paul Meeks, and all these people that influenced me when I was young and just starting out. And the one thing that I noticed, the people that succeeded were A, they had an incredible work ethic, and B, they were organized and knew what they were doing and knew a direction. And I think focus is so important, whether it be on family, faith, or your passion, whether it be whitetail hunting or turkey hunting or duck hunting. You have to have a commitment to it in order to succeed at it, in my opinion. And I don't know that there's anything I could say more important than that. Just if you want to succeed and be at the top of a game, make sure that your focus is honed in. And again, that goes for faith or family or whatever it is. You just can't be focused enough in life.
Wow, those are some really great advice for people listening. Take that to heart. So
I just want to, sometimes you look back and say, what makes this guy tick? And so I just want people ought to know that he's so organized. And just like you said, he keeps all the photos, goes back through, and they're getting, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 a day sometimes.
yeah, what do you do with those photos, Mark? Have you got some kind of hard drive you store them on?
I do. I've got every photo of a rack buck from 2007 to present day. All of them.
I rest my case.
Oh my goodness!
Got to be organized.
Dudley, have you got a question for Mark?
Yeah, and I don't think we've ever asked the Drury clan this question. We ask every significant deer hunting nerd, but so as far as doe harvest goes and trying to keep things quiet on your farms, does Team Drury kind of have a plan you follow on when you do your doe harvesting or how?
Well, here in the Midwest, we're restricted by season. So in Missouri, it's a little bit more liberal because there are several counties in Missouri that have CWD now. So they continue to get more and more liberal with when the seasons are open, how many you can kill, and DMAP, which is a program we started on like 3 or 4 years ago. And you can use centerfire rifles in Missouri. So we have suppressors on all of them. we try to pick a windy day, and we try to pick a really good weather day where they're going to move. And then we use our banish suppressors that we worked with Silencer Central to get on our guns. And man, it works well. You take a windy day and they just keep coming. I mean, it's like they don't even hear it. They'll see the deer fall and they'll go investigate, but it's like they don't hear it. And I'm sure they do because there's a crack to it, but that's been a real blessing. In Iowa, it's different. You got to go late muzzleloader season or second gun season, and it's much more intrusive in the state of Iowa, much more intrusive. So we just do it, to the point we have to do it. It's a necessary evil. We shot 142 does, myself, Wade, and Perry last year between Missouri and Iowa. So it's a burden because these does are heavy in Iowa. I mean, loading them and unloading them and reloading them. I mean, it's a pain in the rear. We had there was one night we shot a field. We waited till the end of the season. It's one of my better bottom fields. And what did we shoot that night? I think we shot just shy of 30 in one night. And then we had to deal with all of them. And it was bitter cold. It was below zero and the wind was blowing 20 miles an hour.
That's a lot of work.
It's a pile of work, man. I mean, and it's the end of the season. You're already burnt out from sitting every day and whatnot, but it's a necessary evil if you want to keep that herd balanced and keep the overall numbers down. And just that whole health thing that I'm talking about, fewer deer equals bigger deer. More deer does not equal bigger deer. You just can't keep the numbers low enough unless you want to see a lot of deer. I personally don't care how many I see. I just want to see the right deer. So we try to keep them pretty low.
Yeah. Wow.
You heard it from the man.
Yeah, you did. That's a good question, Dudley.
Thanks, Bobby.
Well, one thing he didn't say, you just pick up on that. He is bigger on hitting them hard and then quitting. He doesn't believe in nipping at them all the time. Like a lot of people just, let's go. Oh, I shot a doe today. I mean, he plans it out, hits them in a defined, and he, like as short a time period as possible.
The windy day.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. That's good.
High winds are a big deal, and plant them where you see them. Like, I certainly wouldn't want to have to track everyone that's bow hit to manage my does. Like, we want them to fall, so we really make sure our guns are on, and we take that high shoulder shot and knock them down. It's a big part of our equation is planting them right where you shoot them.
So we're learning about silencers. But Nosler, the company that we're working with, I understand you guys are working with the Silencer Co. But what's a caliber and what type of bullet have you found that works out of the? I mean, are you shooting subsonic ammunition?
Well, I don't know. I'm shooting Winchester Deer Season XP.
So that's he's shooting the regular.
Yeah, he's shooting hypersonic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we shoot a 6.8 Western. I love that caliber because it knocks the living tar out of them. Or 270. We have a lot of luck with that caliber as well. In Iowa, we're shooting them with 350 Legend.
Bobby, did I ever tell you I have a 270?
Yeah, I'm a little familiar with that 270, so I sure am.
Another story for another day.
It is.
I love that 270. That's my favorite white tip cartridge.
Oh, it's a good one.
Bobby Dixon put me on 270s.
130 grain nozzle partition out of a 270 is just, it doesn't get any better for a whitetail, in my opinion.
I'm going to say 140 nozzle partition 308.
That's a good one, too.
That is a good
also
one.
a great,
I like
caliber.
I actually do like my lady.
You always see that debate, the ultimate whitetail caliber. There's so many good
Oh,
ones.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you hear the really smart people say any of those in the exact right location is what's more important.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Mac, I'm looking at you. You got a question?
Yeah, so the time of the day is one thing that's always been interesting to me. What percent of the buck harvest do you think are in the morning versus in the afternoon for you?
Archery, I bet you it's 80 or 90% afternoon. For sure.
That is high.
We're better around food. Like I hate to intrude on a bedroom. It just drives me insane to go where I know they're at. So I like to always be like as close as I can be to them without them knowing I'm there. And that's generally some sort of food source very close. And we actually get, like, one of our biggest complaints anymore is that all of our hunts look the same, but it's a blueprint that works for us time and again, regardless of where we go. And that's a biologic field tucked into or around cover, and catch them when they first get out of their bed, man. I mean, it's murder on them up here on the right, on the right weather front. You're going to kill that deer. We get as close as we dare, but we don't hunt mornings very often unless it's this time of the year. rut. I've got a few stands that I like to go to, but typically we're rough on them in the afternoons, but we've got a lot of food planning.
Well, he's got a lot of photographs to look through in the morning. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got 6,000 every day to look through.
Duck hunt in the morning, deer hunt in the afternoon.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Oh my goodness!
The afternoons are their mornings, right? I mean, they're
Right.
just getting going. So
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
The afternoons are their mornings.
Mark Drury. That's a quote right there.
Put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah. Can we put that on a T-shirt?
Yep. And if you take biologic non-typical clover, last bite, or biologic deer radishes, those three products are where we kill almost all of our deer. Almost all of them.
Yeah, I cried this year. This drought, we've had the worst drought in my lifetime. I mean, big mature trees are dying. It's so bad. But
It's terrible up here, too.
I had some non-typical clover going on its 5th year that looks so lush and beautiful, and it finally smoked it. I'm afraid maybe it'll be a testament if we get this rain.
Yeah, we'll see.
Coming up
weeks.
if it comes back. I've had it come back when it looked dead before, but it broke my heart. It's the pride of my planting is the non-typical clover.
We lost a lot of clover fields last year to the drought.
Yep.
So I hope you have a different outcome, but they were rough.
It doesn't
on us.
look good.
Nice.
It doesn't look good.
The Furminator is the industry's most versatile piece of food plot equipment, allowing plotters to do every step of the process, working the soil, adding seed and soil supplements, and compacting, from start to finish with a single implement. It's hassle-free by design. Set it for the seed size and simply drive the tractor, and the Furminator does the rest. Check it out at thefurminator.com.
Hey guys, Dudley from Gamekeepers here. I want to tell you about the all-new Gunner Dog Bowl. It's designed for home and built for travel. It's customizable, leak-resistant, light on weight, solid on durability, and rust-proof. Like other Gunner products, they're made in Nashville and designed for everywhere.
So, Mark, let me loop back around to aging these deer. Taylor recently killed a deer that you guys estimated to be 10 and a half years old.
What a stud.
Can you talk about some of the characteristics that deer may have had?
Well, that was based on a previous landowner's history with that deer. And someone questioned our aging on them. They said, that's impossible. How'd you do it? And she had mentioned in the caption that a previous owner said, here's how old the deer was. Had I just seen the deer and didn't know how old he was, I would have said he's 7.5 or 8.5 plus, because the deer had a head the size of a basketball. His body was fully mature. I mean, he just looked like he could hardly walk. He was so fat, so you just don't see that look very often. It's very rare. But we actually bought that farm this spring at an auction, and I knew the gentleman that had it before. And the first mature deer picture that I got this summer, I sent it to him, and he goes, "Oh, that's the old man." He goes, "We tried to kill him for 5 or 6 years. He's impossible to kill." And he said he used to be 160-inch 10-point, and he was completely dark. We would never daylight anywhere. And he goes, we finally gave up on him. Luckily, this year he was sold. He came back to food, and she killed him on a last bite field the first time we went in after him. So we got very lucky to kill that deer. But he thought he was 9.5 or 10.5 years old.
What a great deer.
That's a great deer.
He really was.
Oh, Bud, that's a real. Was it? It was a mainframe 6. He had a kicker on, didn't he?
Correct.
Wait a minute.
He's a real 7.
You got to talk briefly about, indulge me, the biggest news in your family as far as blood on the biologic. You sent me pictures a couple of weeks ago of something pretty spectacular. Tell me about that.
Miss Lucille.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know who he's talking about. That's a difficult one for me to talk about.
I know,
yeah.
but I know it's emotional.
It's Mom, and,
yes,
and
it was so special.
So special. She's 90.
Isn't that incredible?
And Toxie knows exactly how this feels and what it's like because of their journey with Mr. Fox and all the animals he's killed in the latter years in his life here. But she's 90, and Dad never hunted.
Right.
So when Dad was alive, Mom and Dad were inseparable, and they were always traveling. They'd go to polka things, and they just didn't hunt a lot. Dad was in his 70s before I ever spent a day in the woods with him. I mean, he just did not go. But Mom was raised on a farm. She taught me how to skin my first squirrel. She taught me how to skin my first rabbit. She taught me how to box trap rabbits. When I was 12 and 13 and wanted to go turkey hunting, she'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, take me, drop me off. And then we had a place where she would pick me up at noon, a time and a place. So when Dad passed, the things that Terry and I have done is bring her into camp and involve her more. And she loves the outdoors and she loves to hunt. So the last few years, she's killed some pretty good deer. And she actually lives at an independent living center, and she signs up for physical therapy to make sure that she can stay strong enough to climb into our blinds. So
That's
that
awesome.
was her big challenge going into the season. And I took her up a muddy bull, which is 10 steps. It takes you up to like 12 feet. And that was a struggle. She's age 90, and I was right behind her, holding her, going up those steps. And that was a chore for her to get up there. She was breathing heavily, but she finally made it.
Wow.
We got in place, and this beautiful buck, I mean, this awesome deer with a kicker comes out and just absolutely tore us up. We were like pretzels in that blind because he kept going right to left. The blind is set up for them to come, and I had her set up for an easy shot right in front, but instead he threw us a curveball and he started going right to left. So we had to move her and the apparatus that holds her crossbow, and finally got a shot just as he's exiting the field at 33 yards. And she just absolutely piped him, man. I mean, she's such a good shot. And I mean, there was a lot of tears in that blind when she killed that deer. And then the recovery, it was just awesome. I couldn't wait to share it with Toxic because I knew he would appreciate that.
Oh, my God.
Fox. But Mom, she's my hero. I can tell you that.
A lot of us.
Yeah, that was
incredible.
A lot of us. It's so cool. I just had to mention that's not going to top that one this year.
No, we will not. That was on deer radishes as well, Bobby. So thank you for that. I mean, those deer radishes they've been bloody a few times for us through the years. They are nasty on those deer.
They are great.
Like no other.
It's it really is a great product.
I had a different experience with them though this year than I've ever had in the past. Typically, we plant in mid-August and we get some rain, and they're the right height, and palatability is just high there in early October. Well, this year with the drought, we were so dry in May, June, and July. And then, when we first had a forecast there in July for rain, we were like, we could get dry again. Let's go ahead and try and put them in. So we put our biologic in late July and early August, which we've never done before. And for about a 10-day period, we received 5 or 6 inches of rain. So they were off to a great start, and we got subsoil moisture, and then it stopped. It didn't rain again. But they grew so tall and so big that they kind of outgrew palatability. I've never seen deer ignore deer radishes like they have this year. Couple that with a really heavy acorn crop, and they just haven't been on them. But then we got a freeze in mid-October, and now they're on them again pretty heavily. But I've never seen them lack in palatability like I have this year. And I think we were just early, but thank goodness we did, or we wouldn't have green fields. We'd be in the same shape you guys are. We got very lucky to hit that window.
I wish we'd planted in August.
Yeah.
Well, if you pay a little extra, Mark, you get the ones that are palatable.
We've got a new one this year that I've been really pleased with, too, for the drought conditions.
Yep.
It's crazy how the Endura, we've got a new radish. We're just
Which one? The one that you're testing or the one that you're marketing?
It's new. We've been testing it for a while.
It's
and
called
it's
Endura.
new this year. Endurance.
Endurance radish, yeah.
Yep. And
I believe Austin. Did Austin send me those a couple years ago?
Yeah, he should. Yeah,
you're on the
definitely should got
list
'em.
for sure.
You're definitely on the list.
It's just crazy how drought tolerant they are, honestly, when nothing else would grow.
We've had
some of those.
Yeah.
Well, so look, Mark, I know you got to get going. Are there any questions about aging deer or hunting big bucks you want to ask us? Just might want to fill in some of the gaps that you may have up there.
Any strategy tips you need?
You probably don't have time for that, but we do have a trivia question that we would like to ask you. And if you get this right, one of our listeners who has left us a review potentially could win a fabulous prize. And the prize is this Ryan Kirby deer aging poster. And Ryan's going to ship one to whoever wins this. And Mark, you're smiling. I like seeing you smile.
Well, I'm nervous now. I don't want to cost this.
Yeah, Bob, just so you know, who came up with this question? Honestly,
yeah, I did.
I thought so.
Yeah. So, but it's a Missouri question, and I'm going to turn it. So, Richie, would you please introduce what we're doing here with your radio announcer voice, please?
Today's trivia is brought to us by Sheffield Financial, because your finances are not trivial.
No, they aren't.
Yeah, and so who are we? So let me point this out. I don't think I passed this along. We are playing for. Here we go. All right, be patient with me, Mark. All right, so so the Ryan Kirby poster is the prize. The guy we're playing for, assume it's a guy, South Georgia Stoic, could potentially win this. So with that said, I'm gonna turn it over to Mac.
All right, Mr. Mark. So this is going to be a true or false. So you got a 50% chance on this one. So the question is, has there ever been a legitimate cobra, a cobra being a snake, problem in a city in Missouri?
All right. Oh my word. Where did you get this one?
For real?
Oh my goodness.
That's why I went ahead and set it up ahead of time. That's a typical Bobby question.
We're trying to enlighten people. And,
we want our listeners to get the prizes, Bob.
I need more depth on this. Like, are you saying like in the wild, or one that was a pet that got out, or qualify that?
Either or.
Well, then I would say that maybe there would have been at some point somebody that had a snake that it got loose. So I would say potentially yes, but I will tell South Georgia Stoic that if I got that wrong, if you'll send me his address, I'll buy him a poster and send one.
Well, you actually got it
Nailed
right.
it.
So,
That's right.
Tell us about that, Mac.
So in 1953 in Springfield, there was about 35 cobras throughout the city, and 11 of them were actually killed, and I think 9 of the 11 were killed with a garden hoe. One was trying to be dispatched with a pistol, and they had to ended up killing it with a garden hoe. But the story is pretty funny. So there was a 14-year-old boy who bought a fish from this pet store, brought the fish home. The fish passes away. He's all mad, goes back and demands another fish. The guy that owned the store pretty much tells him to get out of his store, and he sees a box behind this store, and he doesn't know what it is. He just knows it's snakes. And so he lets all these Indonesian cobras or Indian cobras out. And so in Springfield, Missouri in 1953, there was a cobra epidemic.
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, you should pay more attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah,
Mark.
but I mean,
How did y'all find this? I mean,
I don't know, but it's just something I knew. I ran across.
And they really didn't know who. The most interesting thing is they didn't know for 35, or I think it was 30 some odd years, how this even happened. And then finally that 14-year-old boy came forward and said, "Hey, it was me. I let the cobras out."
he didn't replace my fish,
Who
so I
let
kicked
the
the cobra
cobras
bug
out?
up.
Yeah. So one of the Missouri law enforcement departments still has the cobra on their symbol or their shield because they spent so much time trying to help in Springfield to capture those. That's how I found out about it. I ran across this as a true false.
What does this have to do with the age of white
It
tails in
doesn't
southern
have
Iowa?
anything. It just
Absolutely nothing.
look. There's nothing about deer we could ask Mark. He would get everything right. So I was trying to get out of the lane a little bit just to see how wide he went.
That was pretty easy. You can't make that one up, so it had to be a real yes.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, it's got to be yes, or they wouldn't have asked the question.
Right. Well, we threw him a
remember.
softball.
Yeah, we'll remember that next time.
All right. So, what else have we got, Richie? We got anything else we need to do?
So,
before we
hey,
let Mark go?
what about Uncle Terry the other week too?
Unbelievable. 216 inches, and
The mass was incredible.
Mass was incredible, and Scott Bestel. Do you guys know Scott? Field and Stream?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that Scott's fighting cancer right now?
No,
I didn't know that.
Did not.
It's a
Wow.
very rare form of stomach cancer.
Oh,
And please keep him in your prayers. And Scott reached out to me, and Scott's one of those guys that dates back to the early 90s with us. He's one of the first guys we started taking turkey hunting when he first started riding. So we're very close friends. And Scott immediately reached out. He was like, I want to cover this buck, because we knew it was big, or he knew it was big. And probably it may be one of the biggest deer killed in Missouri this year. So I told Terry about it and got them connected up. And then Scott did this beautifully written piece for Field and Stream. Field and Stream posted on social media. And the caption for the post, I'm sure it was someone on their social team. They probably didn't think through this quite thoroughly enough, because here's Scott and Terry with this 30-year history and great friends, and there's a lot of meaning with Scott's fight right now and him writing this story for Terry. And she writes, or they write, I don't know who it was. hunter spends 6 days in a box blind to kill a 200-inch deer. That was the caption she came up with. So here's Terry, 55 years in, has hunted his tail off and kills the deer of a lifetime. And he's just gotten so much backlash over that deer because of that one headline. And I'm like, man alive, it's just not fair. It's not fair to Terry, because this is the crowning moment of a lifetime spent committed to deer and outdoor production and everything. And what a deer that was on his farm that he killed. And he and I spent countless hours on the phone talking about that deer. And I kept telling him, I said, I wouldn't want to be that deer with you hunting me. I know that, because I knew he was going to kill him, and he did, and just smoked him. So I was so happy for him and proud of him. I mean, it's
what a beautiful
hell of an accomplishment.
I sent him a note right away, and I couldn't even share it on air. What he sent back meant so much to me. He is the classest act. I know the whole family and everybody, and y'all are so tight. It's such a cool thing to see, especially over all this time. But he really is. He is one of my heroes too. He's
a wordsmith too, Toxie, man. He can write some feeling. He is really good.
Yeah, and you know what? He doesn't have guardrails. He just says what he feels, And one of those things I learned, I always say, when I go back to kind of the day when we lost Bob and all, that's like, this is off of 5-year-old deer too, but don't let it go by, and let everybody know that you care about it. Let them know, let them know how you feel about him. He will just spit it right out. It's so refreshing. Yep.
He's so much fun to be around.
Oh
too.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. And speaking of Bob, he taught me that.
Yep.
Turkey Federation, right before he passed away, he walked up and he goes, "I want you to know I love you." And I was like,
wow. Yep. Yeah. I got that same thing through there, and I told him, and I did, but once he passed.
And since then, I've always let people know that I love them.
Yep. I've gotten. It's like, what's up with him? I was like, hey, I learned my lesson there. It's not like I didn't, but I wasn't as good at it as I need to be. You either take it for granted or you're a little guarded about, we're all scared of being vulnerable or whatever. And that's, how chicken is that? So, hey, let them know. They know. They know around here. That's no secret.
Yeah. Wow. That's 2 podcasts in a row we've had somebody tear up. Mark.
I'm easy to tear up. All you got to do is talk about mom or Toxie or Brother Terry, or you bring up politics.
Right.
Yep. But it's so cherished within the halls. I mean, this seems like a rambling podcast or a lot of joking and carrying on. I mean, it's not like we have a guest on. No, it's not. It's just right. It's just like looking down the table at Bobby to look up there at Mark. And so, it's great to do it because it does keep us connected. We don't get to spend as much time as we used to. But as I was leaving the house a minute ago, Miss D said, "Tell you hello," and if I forgot to say that, I'd get in trouble when she listened to the podcast in a couple of weeks.
She's one of my favorite people in the whole world. Tell her I love her.
Done.
All right, we've been
well,
down memory lane.
I hadn't seen him since Turkey Federation, so I had to catch up a little bit.
No, I understand.
Yeah, 100%.
Mark, we love having you on, and
yep.
So, look, without getting gushy, everybody knows how everybody feels about everybody around here. So,
love you, man.
Yeah. So, Mark, hang on. You still got a few more minutes, but we always do blood on the biologic. We usually do that at the beginning, and now, out of respect for Mark, we held it off to the end. But I've got a bunch of youngins to mention here.
Let's go.
Trace Tatum. John Tatum.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Killed a doe.
Go John and Trace.
One of Mark's family members, Henry Lurk.
Jared's son.
Killed Hank.
I call him Hank. Nobody else does, but he's a little Hank.
Hammer and Hank.
Yeah.
Hammer and Hank.
Yeah. Okay. What about Cash Lindsay? Killed a really nice deer in Georgia.
Nice.
And they just had another baby just a few days ago.
Wow.
I can't keep up with them. They got youngins all over now. What about Kevin Van Dam, KVD?
He's the man.
Up in Michigan. That's a big deer too.
They've had snow. He sent me a couple of pictures of him the other day. It was freaking 6 inches of snow under his tree stand.
So what else do we need? Anything, Lanny?
Are you on? You're gonna sit this afternoon, Mark?
I know.
Did we give you accolades on pork chop?
The 222-pound
Oh, yeah, Bobby.
Alabama whitetail?
Bobby killed a deer on his place.
Yeah.
I don't,
First time.
Yeah, I don't need any accolades.
He
I
went out
appreciate
with
that,
his
but
bow and got a big old mature buck.
Yeah, he did.
At his own place.
Oh, killer.
almost didn't make it in time. Y'all held me here on
We
that
should have held it another 20 minutes.
the
That
Deer
wouldn't have
Dog
happened. Yeah.
podcast.
Look at that deer right there.
See, look at that head on that thing, Bobby. That
Yeah.
thing's how old was he? I would guess he's 6+. I mean,
Yeah.
looks it.
Yeah, I was thinking he was at least 6.5 as well.
He's got that flappy neck thing going on.
Yeah, he
for
does.
sure.
Hey,
Look
Mark.
at him.
That's a great buck.
Hey, Mark, in honor of Bob Dixon, I'm going to call him. He's as old as he's going to get.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, but 222 pounds, that's a giant whitetail.
That is for down here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's he was a day old when I weighed that, so he could have lost a
He
little
lost,
bit.
lost a little BCP.
Always exaggerating.
Well, I'm just
He's
being,
probably a little heavier.
Tell her up tall as hell.
all right, guys. That was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed this, Mark. We always enjoy having
Yeah,
you on.
thanks
We
for being
appreciate you
here.
making time.
Big time.
You guys are the best. I do a few different podcasts. I do the guys at Working Class, and I do Mark Kenyon's, and of course I do Matt and Tim's. But this is the one that I enjoy the most. You guys are fun to talk to, and it's just like old family for me. Like Toxie said, it's always a pleasure.
Well, hopefully Richie was recording this, and this will actually be a podcast next
Yeah,
week.
you did hit the record.
You're doing
button,
good. The
didn't you, Richie?
podcast is really, it's shot way up again this week. You're doing great. So
Yeah.
Well,
Killing it, man.
well, we're trying.
Oh, Boone and Crockett Bobby.
We're trying. No, I tell you what, but Mark, if you ever have any questions, just don't feel free to ask. I'll be
But
glad
he
to
gets
help
free
you out.
advice. He's
Yeah,
really
we're
good
here
at
to
that.
help.
get you some Bobby Logic. All
Oh, man. All right, guys, let's find
right,
this
tell them
thing.
all hello for us.
I will. My grandbaby's here.
All
Toxie,
right. That's
She
fun.
flew in about a week and a half ago or 2 weeks, and Taylor killed that deer. She's staying until November 14th. So we've been, when the weather's warm like it is today, I'm skipping and I'm going to spend some time with Taylor and Mabry. And
That's
it
awesome.
just, I think I sent you the photo when we put her in the dress that Taylor was
Oh,
in.
yeah, that was
Yes.
awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes.
We're going to remake that turkey photo this spring, so it's identical. But
That's incredible.
it's been a pleasure having Mabry Grace here.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
one of my close friends I roomed with in college. I'd have to say this because it reminds me of me, Mark too. Is like he had his first grandkids were twins. I said, "How are those twins?" He said, I've never experienced anything like this. Unbelievable." And he sounded real. He was always a great sense of humor. He said, "I told my kids, it's a good thing I didn't. If I'd have known how much fun these grandkids were, I'd have just gone on and had them first."
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So Mark is definitely in that boat. Big
That's
time.
great. Good stuff.
Well, you look happy, Mark.
He
we,
is.
We it looks like life's treating you well, and so go enjoy the rest of the day, and we're gonna get back to doing what it is we do around
Paying
here.
some
every
bills.
day.
That's
So,
right.
all right.
You guys are the best. I sure appreciate you. I love you.
Likewise, brother.
Mark.
All
Love
right.
you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Won't you say
No big
goodbye,
deal.
Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Boom.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.